For years I carried everyone, their bills, their dreams, their failures. I was the fixer, the quiet one, the one who never said no, until my 5-year-old nephew threw my birthday cake on the ground and laughed. That's when I realized it wasn't a prank. It was a cue. And I finally broke the cycle. This isn't a revenge story. It's about silence, boundaries, and what it really costs to walk away. I only come home twice a year, Christmas and my birthday, if I'm lucky. Long-haul trucking doesn't leave much time for family, but I've always made the effort. My rig is cleaner than the house I grew up in, and I sleep better in the cab than I ever did in my childhood bedroom. Still, I come back, like clockwork, like duty. This year, I pulled into my mom's driveway right at sunset. The yard hadn't changed. Same cracked bird bath, same rusting wind chimes that never really chimed. Ethan's car was in the driveway, which meant his family was here too. Great. "Happy birthday, Alex," my mom called out from the porch, like it meant something. She still had her apron on, even though I knew she bought the cake from Costco. Inside, the air was heavy with the smell of reheated lasagna and too many scented candles. My nephew Max came running up, 5 years old, sticky fingers, big smile. "Uncle Alex," he shouted, wrapping his arms around my legs. For a second, I smiled. A real one. Then I saw Ethan leaning back on the couch, phone in hand, not looking at me. That was our dynamic. I was the ghost that paid the bills, and he was the golden boy that couldn't keep a job. They sang happy birthday half-heartedly, and someone dimmed the lights. I didn't even like cake, but I let Max bring it over to me with a plastic knife in hand. Just before he reached me, he froze, turned to glance at Ethan. Ethan nodded. Max looked at me, grinned wide, and threw the entire cake on the floor. It hit the linoleum with a dull, wet smack. Frosting splattered my boots. Everyone went silent, waiting for me to blow up, to make it awkward. Instead, Max looked up at me and said, "Eat it off the ground, Uncle Alex." And Ethan, he laughed. Loud, long, the kind of laugh you can't mistake for anything but cruelty wrapped in a joke. Something in my chest clicked. It wasn't just a kid being a brat. It was a cue, a performance, a signal Ethan had trained him to give, and the audience was watching to see how I'd play my part. So I did the last thing they expected. I crouched down and started cleaning the mess. No yelling, no drama, just quiet. "I'll get it," I said, not looking at anyone. My mom tried to coo something, but I didn't hear her. I was too busy wiping chocolate frosting from the tile, thinking about how many times I'd cleaned up after them, emotionally, financially, everything, without a single thank you. That night, I didn't sleep in my old room. I drove to a truck stop, parked my rig, and lay in my bunk staring at the ceiling. Not angry, just done. There wasn't a specific moment I decided to change everything. It happened over cake, over silence, over the way Ethan laughed like I was still a dog he could kick. Something shifted, something final, and this time, I wasn't going to let it shift back. Growing up, I was the quiet one. Ethan was the charmer. Always knew how to spin a story, flash a grin, disappear when it was. Time to clean up. My parents said we balanced each other. What they meant was, I worked while he dreamed. I took responsibility while he made messes, and when those messes got too big, they'd hand me the mop and call it love. By the time I turned 20, Ethan already had 2 failed business ventures and a new one on the way, some kind of smoothie truck he claimed would dominate the downtown lunch scene. I was skeptical, but Mom guilted me into helping. "He's your brother, Alex. Don't you want him to succeed?" So I co-signed the loan. Then came the t-shirt business, custom slogans, overpriced hoodies, another loan, then crypto, then NFTs, all losses, all in my name. I kept a spreadsheet. I never meant to, at first, but after the 3rd overdraft, I needed to see it on paper. The amount of money bled from my accounts, from my credit score, from my peace of mind. Each line item was a confession they never made. They called it helping. They called me so dependable. What they meant was, you're the one who won't say no, so we'll keep asking. And I did keep saying yes, year after year, because I thought that's what family did. That if I didn't fix it, I was abandoning them. That love looked like sacrifice. But that birthday cake changed something. After I left the party, I sat in my truck with the spreadsheet open on my laptop. $8,130 in business loans, $3,200 in credit card debt, $1,750 for Ethan's failed wellness retreat weekend that maxed out my card, and those were just the ones I had receipts for. I started tracking everything, like I did for freight routes: date, amount, reason, repayment status, always blank. It was strange how quickly the emotional charge drained when I saw it all as numbers. My feelings became metrics, my hurt became a ledger, and that's when I realized they don't see me as a person. I'm a resource, a bank account with boots. I didn't rage, I didn't cry. I ran the numbers. I made a plan. This wasn't going to be a dramatic showdown. I wasn't going to scream or demand apologies. I was going to sever every tie, cleanly, legally, finally. Because when you spend your whole life cleaning up after someone, there comes a moment when you look down at your hands and think, why am I the only one holding the broom? And when that moment comes, it's not about revenge. It's about release. I was done being useful. I was ready to be free. The highway at 2 a.m. is its own kind of church. Just me, my headlights, and the white lines stretching into forever. That night, I was somewhere between Kansas City and Denver, sipping truck stop coffee and listening to static-filled radio. I felt hollow, but light. Like the decision I made back in that driveway was starting to breathe in my chest. I hadn't talked to anyone since the birthday. No texts, no calls, just silence. And for once, it didn't feel like punishment. It felt like peace. Then, around mile marker 312, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mom. Just one sentence. We've chosen to sever all contact. Stay away forever. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering. We. Not I. Not I'm hurt or let's talk. Just we've chosen, like a boardroom decision, like I was a failed employee being terminated. A minute later, Ethan liked the message. I almost laughed. There it was. Proof. This wasn't about emotions. It never had been. It was about control. And now that I'd stopped playing my role, they were rewriting the script, casting me as the villain, the runaway, the ungrateful son. I could almost hear Ethan saying he turned his back on the family while handing Mom another one of my credit card bills. But here's the thing about letting go. Once you feel it, you can't unfeel it. I didn't yell. I didn't plead. I just typed one sentence and hit send. Removing my name from every loan tomorrow. That was it. No signature, no emoji. Just facts. I turned off my phone after that. Not to avoid them, to protect the silence. It had taken me 33 years to find that silence. I wasn't letting it go. The next morning, I pulled into a truck stop outside Denver, cleaned my cab, brewed fresh coffee, and printed every financial document I'd collected over the years. Loan papers, account statements, transaction records. I stacked them like freight. Neat, labeled, documented. By noon, I had an appointment at the bank. By nightfall, I'd be free. It didn't feel dramatic. It didn't feel brave. It felt like routine, like backing up a trailer or checking tire pressure, something I should have done years ago. Funny how family teaches you to tolerate pain, then blames you when you finally say, enough. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. And clarity doesn't beg. It acts. The bank smelled like antiseptic and coffee. Cold floors, fake plants, quiet humming from overhead fluorescents. It was a Tuesday mid-morning, the kind of day where nothing big is supposed to happen. But for me, everything was changing. Carla, The loan specialist had kind eyes and a direct way of speaking. I appreciated that. I handed her the stack of papers I'd organized by sleepless nights and broken trust. I want my name off everything, I said. Every joint account, every cosign, every card tied to anyone but me. She nodded, flipping through the files with the kind of practiced efficiency that made me trust her instantly. We can start with the business loans, she said, already typing. Then move to the credit cards. You might need Ethan to agree in some cases, but let's see what we can remove unilaterally. I braced for obstacles, legal barriers, required signatures, delays, and sure enough, they came. Some accounts needed both parties to sign. Some needed to be closed entirely. One card had been reopened last month without my knowledge. In my name, of course. Carla paused when she saw that one. They used your name without authorization, she said gently. I just nodded. Add it to the list. For every hurdle I had a counter. Letters drafted, documentation ready. I'd learned how to track mileage, freight weights, sleep cycles. Why not financial abuse? Each form I signed was a breath of fresh air. Each closed account, a piece of my identity returned. I didn't realize how much weight I'd been dragging behind me until I felt it lift, little by little, with every stamped document. By the time I walked out of that bank, my shoulders felt straighter. But I wasn't done. I drove straight to my parents' house. Not out of spite, not for a scene, for closure. The porch still creaked the same way. The wind chimes still hung limp and rusted. I knocked once. My dad answered, surprised, tired. Alex, he said. I'm not here to fight, I said. I just came to let you know I'm done. All financial ties are cut. I removed myself from everything. Behind him, I saw Ethan slouched on the couch. My mom stood stiff in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed. Ethan smirked. What, you want a medal? No, I said. I want peace. Mom's lips pressed into a thin line. So, you're abandoning your family? I shook my head. No, I'm just not funding it anymore. Dad looked like he wanted to speak, but didn't. I looked at each of them, calmly, clearly, and said, I don't owe anyone here anything. Not anymore. I hope you find your way, but I won't be carrying you there. Then I turned around and walked out. No door slam, no dramatic goodbye, just boots on old wood, and the cleanest breath I'd taken in years. I don't remember the drive back to my rig, just the hum of the engine and the sound of my own breath. I wasn't shaky. I wasn't angry. I wasn't anything, really. Just present. Like I'd finally stepped outside a dream I didn't know I was trapped in. But a few days later, I got the call. It was Dad. Can you stop by? He asked, voice low. Your mother wants to say a few things. I almost said no, but something in his tone made me curious, like he was testing a boundary without fully crossing it. So I went. Same house, same cracked sidewalk, same stale air inside. They were all there. Mom in her kitchen chair like a queen behind court. Ethan on the couch, arms spread like he owned the place. Dad leaned against the wall, neutral as ever. I stood by the doorway, not out of intimidation, just instinct. I heard you made some big moves, Ethan said, fake casual. I made necessary moves, I replied. I guess you think you're better than us now, Mom added, her voice sharp with disappointment dressed as concern. Too good for family. I think I spent a long time confusing guilt with love, I said, evenly. That's on me, Ethan scoffed. So you just walk away, after everything we've done for you? I blinked. What exactly have you done for me? Ethan? He stood up, voice rising. You're a cold bastard. You know that? Max cries when you're not around. You think that's freedom? Leaving a 5-year-old confused? That one landed harder than I expected, but I kept my posture. I love Max, but I won't be used through him anymore. Silence. Then Mom spoke, low and venomous. "If you walk out that door, don't come back. You hear me? You're not welcome here anymore." For a second, I waited, almost expecting Dad to step in. But he stayed quiet, eyes fixed on a spot between us all. And for the first time, I realized he always had. This was their pattern, their performance, their script. I'd just stopped reading my lines. So I nodded. Once. "I hear you," and I walked out. No shouting, no slammed doors, just the quiet sound of someone finally believing their own worth. Out on the porch, the wind chimes swayed. No sound, just motion. I got in my truck, turned the key, and drove away. And this time, I didn't look in the rearview mirror. Life got quiet after that. Not the lonely kind of quiet, the clean kind. I'd park my rig at night, make my own meals instead of grabbing whatever was hot at the last truck stop. I started running again. I'd forgotten how much I liked the feeling of my boots hitting gravel in rhythm, lungs burning in a way that didn't feel like stress. No more 3 a.m. calls about bounced payments. No more, "Can you just cover this one thing?" Voicemails. It was like someone had finally turned off the alarm that had been ringing in my head for a decade. But freedom isn't always peaceful. Sometimes, it's just silent enough to let the guilt speak louder. That's when the messages started. First, a photo of Max. No caption. Just him holding a crayon drawing that said Uncle Alex in shaky block letters. Then a voice message from Mom. "He misses you. He doesn't understand why you won't call." I listened once, deleted it. Ethan started showing up at the truck yard. Twice, he caught me during my pre-trip checks. Always alone, always a script. "Listen, man, I know things got weird," he said one morning, leaning against my cab like we were old buddies. "But I'm in a bind. It's just one last loan. Just need your signature." I looked at him, saw the desperation under the swagger. He was older now, tired, still trying to play the role, but the stage was crumbling. "I'm not your solution anymore," I said. He smiled, bitter. "So you're really doing this? Letting Max grow up without you?" That hit harder than I wanted it to. But I didn't flinch. "I'm not the one using him to manipulate people." His face shifted, that flash of real anger, raw and unmasked. But I was already climbing into my seat, closing the door. It wasn't over. I knew that. The guilt games would keep coming. But something in me had changed. I used to think love meant sacrificing yourself. Now I know it means not letting people hollow you out just because they share your blood. Some nights, I'd still miss Max. That goofy laugh, the way he'd fall asleep with his shoes on during movies. But I didn't miss the rest. Not the weight, not the obligation, not the quiet resentment curled in every favor. I was learning to exist without being useful to someone else, and I was surviving just fine. It's been nearly a year since the cake hit the floor. I still keep the spreadsheet, but now it tracks my own goals. Miles driven, money saved, hours of sleep. The columns used to be about other people. Now they're mine. The family doesn't reach out much anymore. The silence became mutual. Once they realized I wasn't breaking, wasn't bending, wasn't coming back with an apology and a checkbook, the air went still. They rewrote the narrative, of course. Word got around that I abandoned them, that I was too proud to forgive. Mom tells everyone I turned cold. Ethan calls me selfish. I let them talk. Because I finally understand. You can't change a story told by people committed to misunderstanding you. A few weeks ago, I started writing something in a notebook I keep on the dash of my rig. I call it the manifest. Not for freight, for myself. Page 1. My money is mine. My name is mine. My time is mine. My worth is not defined by what I give away. I do not exist to make others comfortable. Saying no is not cruel. Walking away is not abandonment when staying means self-destruction. I read it every morning before I turn the key. Last week, I got a message from my dad. "Proud of you. Don't tell your mother. Just that. It sat heavy on my chest for a while, a mix of something like love and sadness and a weird kind of respect. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally understand the limits of what some people can give. And that's okay. I think about Max sometimes, more than I'd like to admit. I keep a pair of kid-sized wool socks in my glove compartment. I don't know why. Maybe just in case. I don't know if he'll ever reach out one day. Maybe he'll be told I was a monster. Maybe he'll remember the movie nights, the piggyback rides, the quiet way I used to carry him to bed. If he ever does find me, I won't come with bitterness. Just truth. I'll take him to that little diner off Route 68, the one with the lemon pie he liked. I'll tell him everything. Not to poison him, not to recruit him. Just so he knows what happened and why I left the way I did. And maybe he'll understand. Or maybe he won't. Either way, I'll be okay. Because I finally put down the weight that wasn't mine, and I never picked it back up.